ефірі загальнонаціонального марафону. Мене звати Оля Гудко. Починаємо. Дональд Трамп буде говорити із президентом України Володимиром Зеленським.
This is my video update on this Monday midday, May the 19th, coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus. Let's talk about some news, and let's talk about the elections from yesterday. Elections in Romania, elections in Portugal, and elections in Poland. And we will start off with the elections in Romania. And in the elections in Romania, we got a big surprise result. Lieutenant Dan, the mayor of Bucharest, won the Romanian elections. He beat out first round winner and favorite Simeon, and he beat him by a decisive margin. 54% for Lieutenant Dan and 45% for Simeon. You see, life is really like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And boy, did we get a big surprise in Romania with Lieutenant Dan winning. The pro-EU, pro-globalist Macron, Pal, Nicosurdan. Lieutenant Dan is the new leader of Romania. 54% to Simeon's 45%. So Simeon in the first round, Simeon got 41% or 42%. All he needed was 50% in the second round. He had in the first round 41%, let's say, somewhere around there. Lieutenant Dan, he barely got into second place. This is the EU's pick. This guy was handpicked by the European Union. He barely got second place in the first round with about 20%, 21%. And in the second round, he skyrocketed to 54%, and Simeon pretty much got no real votes in the second round. I mean, he barely went up in votes in the second round. Here is a post from the account of Maddie on X. We are a statistical impossibility. George Simeon didn't pick up almost any votes compared to round one, and everyone else voted Nicosurdan. Cool. Cool, he says. He or she says. Cool. Yeah, that's right. Lieutenant Dan, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. Oh, man. All right, well, Simeon conceded. He conceded very quickly. He said everything was on the up and up. I lost fair and square. So the EU's happy. The globalists are happy. Macron is super happy. Can't really tell the difference between the two guys. Dan and Macron. They're pretty much the same dude when you look at them. Oh, man. Nicosurdan, his post on X thanked Macron. I thank President Emmanuel Macron for the congratulatory call tonight, one in which all of Europe kept an eye on the elections in Romania. I assured President Macron that we will continue to be trusted partners within the European Union, and that in the coming days we will have substantive discussions on our common future and the security of the European Union. In other words, don't worry about the big NATO base. Don't worry about our support to Zelensky and Project Ukraine. We are 100% on board with you, Macron, and with you, Ursula, and the European Union. So, Pavel Durov, the founder, CEO of Telegram, yesterday, he put out a post claiming that a country, he did not name the country, but he had a baguette. he had an emoji of a baguette, but he would not name the country. He said that this country approached him and they wanted him to silence conservative voices on his Telegram platform. That is what Durov posted yesterday, the day of the elections. He posted a Western European government, guess which, approached Telegram asking us to silence conservative voices in Romania ahead of today's presidential elections. I flatly refused. Telegram will not restrict the freedoms of Romanian users or block their political channels. You can't defend democracy by destroying democracy. You can't fight election interference by interfering with elections. You either have freedom of speech and fair elections, or you don't. And the Romanian people deserve both. How nice of Durov, the protector of democracy, Pavel Durov. I believe that Telegram still has Russian media blocked in most of the EU. But anyway, that's Durov. And France, the foreign ministry of France, they denied these claims from Durov. They said, no, we did not. We absolutely did not ask you to meddle in Romania's elections. This is what the foreign ministry of France, that's pretty much what they said. And Durov, he then posted, this spring at the Salon de Batil in the Hotel de Crillon, Nicholas Lerner, head of French intelligence, asked me to ban conservative voices in Romania ahead of elections. I refused. We didn't block protesters in Russia, Belarus, or Iran. We won't start doing it in Europe. Pavel Durov. So he names names. He says the French intel chief Lerner actually personally approached him and told him to ban conservative voices in Romania. And very clever, Mr. Durov, very clever. He says, we will not do this. We did not ban opposition in Russia, Belarus, or Iran, right? You know what he means when he says opposition. He means anti-Putin, anti-Lukashenko, anti-Iran government. We didn't ban those voices. When we were asked by Lukashenko or Putin to ban opposition, we didn't do it. Why would we do it in Romania? You see? You see how Durov frames this? Something's going on, man. And why did he post this on the same day as the elections? He's been out of France for a couple of months now, hasn't he? At least a month. I believe a month ago, maybe even more, he was allowed to leave France. Why did he post this information the very day of elections? Why did he not post this a month ago, or 2 weeks ago, or a week ago? Something is going on. What do you guys think is going on? Let me know what you think is going on, please. I'm very interested to read your comments on this. Is Durov trying to cover up for something? Is he trying to cover up for Telegram? Maybe he's trying to come out with this information in order to, maybe it's preemptive. Maybe it's preemptive in order to say, you know what, we came out with the information that the French authorities approached us because maybe in the future there's going to be some media reports, maybe out of Romanian media, which are going to say that France approached Telegram to ban accounts, and so Durov is trying to get ahead of these reports. I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas, guesses. I'm completely guessing now. as to why he decided to release this information the day of the elections when he could have released this information a whole lot sooner. Is he trying to distract from what really happened? Right? Maybe he's saying, look over here. Telegram was approached by this learner guy, the French intel. So let's talk about this instead of talking about about 54% in the second round for Lieutenant Dan. Is that what he's trying to do? I don't know. Maybe he's trying to embarrass France, but not embarrass NATO and the European Union, right? Maybe he's taking a jab at France because France arrested him, and maybe he's just trying to get back at his buddy Macron. He is friends with Macron. Maybe he's just trying to take a jab at Macron, but making sure he does it the day of the election so that nothing spoils the actual outcome, and the EU and NATO and the globalists are not going to be upset with him. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. But something is up, man. The way he words his post on X. We didn't block protesters in Russia, Belarus, or Iran. Well, of course you didn't. Of course you didn't block those protesters. Oh, man. Anyway, that's Durov. I posted on X. This is what I posted on X. TikTok election meddling. TikTok rejects allegation. Local media debunks allegation as fake. Cancel elections. Ban candidate. Hold a do-over. Telegram founder claims French officials personally asked him to meddle in elections. On Telegram, democracy wins. Nothing to see here. That's right. The first election, they said it was Russia TikTok meddling. We need to have a do-over. Even though Romanian media, Scoop or Snoop? I forgot the name of that media. I think Scoop.ro. Anyway, Snoop or Scoop.ro. They investigated the TikTok meddling and they found out that it was all a fake. The whole thing was a fake. And we still had a do-over. We still had a do-over, and they banned Georgescu because of TikTok meddling. Now we have, and by the way, TikTok actually denied the meddling. They came out in a statement and they said, we found no Russian election meddling. We didn't see any of that on our platform. Nothing unusual, at least, was going on TikTok for the elections. Now you have the founder, CEO of Telegram, actually coming out and saying, this guy, French intel, I can even tell you the dude's name, approached me and wanted to meddle in the elections. But, no problem. Nothing to see here. Democracy wins. So that is the situation in Romania. Big day for the globalists and for the European Union and for Macron. Very big day. Big victory in the story of Romanian elections. And this really was a story, quite an incredible journey in these elections in Romania. So let's talk about the elections in Portugal. In Portugal, we have the incumbent party. They won the elections in Portugal, as was to be expected. Luis Montenegro won these snap elections. A lot of corruption scandals surrounding Montenegro, but he came out ahead. This is not a surprise. This was absolutely expected. We're talking about the pro-EU, pro-globalist party and candidate. But the big surprise in these elections is that the Chega Party, which is the populist party in Portugal, surged to second place. I believe Chega was founded in 2019, I want to say. And now they are the second most popular party in Portugal. I believe they ended up with 25 or 26% of the vote, where the ruling party that took first place, Montenegro's party, ended up with about 35 or 36%. they're going to have to form a coalition. But Chega, led by Andre Ventura, ended up in second place. And remember, he could not campaign during the final couple of days because he had some stomach virus, a stomach illness. He ate something, ate or drank something, and he was out. He could not campaign for the last few days, Ventura. But big news in Portugal. The Chega Party in second place. But the ruling party, the party that will govern, is going to be the pro-EU party, or the pro-EU coalition that will be formed in Portugal. And finally, we have the elections in Poland, the first round of the presidential elections. No more Andrzej Duda. The da is leaving. Walk on the wild side, Duda. No more Zelensky hugs from Duda. Zelensky, no more hugs from the big guy, Andrzej Duda. So we have elections in Poland, and the pro-EU, pro Donald Tusk, the Donald Tusk ally, who is also, from what I understand, the mayor of Warsaw. He ended up winning the first round, so he will advance to the second round. He got about 31 or 32% of the vote. And the populist candidate, who is endorsed actually by the Law and the Law and Justice, Duda's party. He is endorsed by them. He ended up in second place with about 20% of the vote. But the interesting story here in Poland is that if you add up second, third, and fourth place, and we're talking about populist parties. Let's just say they're populist parties, even though Andrzej Duda and his party, the Law and Justice Party, kind of populist, kind of not. They're very pro-Ukraine. They are pro-EU, and they do have quite a globalist tilt to them. But anyway, we'll define them as populist. If you put together second, third, and fourth place, and you define them as populist right, let's just say populist right, then they have over 50% of the vote. So that's kind of the story there. Now, whether all of the votes end up going for Karol Nawrocki, who is in second place, so that you do get a populist president in Poland, that remains to be seen. My guess would be that Donald Tusk's candidate, Rafał Trzaskowski, I'm pronouncing that wrong. My guess is that he will end up winning the presidential elections, because that is what the EU and the globalists want, and that is what they are going to get. But anyway, an interesting day of elections across Europe. On balance, a very good day for Macron and for the EU globalists. A very good day for them. So speaking of the globalists, Macron, Stammer, Merz, Reuters is reporting that they gave Trump a phone call. Stammer, Macron, and I believe Merz also said he's going to call Trump. They gave him a phone call so that they can tell Trump to push the 30-day unconditional ceasefire when he speaks to Putin, and if Putin does not agree to the 30-day unconditional ceasefire, then to sign up for bone-crushing sanctions against Russia. So they called Trump to convince Trump, after he calls Putin today, which is going to take place, I believe, at 10, 11 o'clock Eastern time, which would be around 5 o'clock Moscow, 5, 6 o'clock Moscow time. Peskov has confirmed the call and the time. Stammer, Macron, and Merz, they wanted to make sure that they spoke to Trump so they can make sure that the US president is on board with the 4+1. Otherwise, you're just going to have the 4. You have to have the +1. The +1 is Trump. So they want to make sure that it remains the 4+1. They told Trump, you tell Putin when you talk to him. I love it that they're giving the US president orders. But who knows, Macron has turned out to be pretty powerful, man. He's turned out to be pretty powerful, Emmanuel Macron. Anyway, they told Trump, you make sure that you tell Putin it's a 30-day unconditional ceasefire or else bone-crushing sanctions. That was the message that they passed on to the US president. According to Reuters. Starmer discusses Russian war against Ukraine with US, Italy, France, and Germany. Maloney also took part in this little endeavor. Maloney, right? Because Maloney has good relations with Trump. She's very sweet on Elon Musk. and so they made sure that Maloney was part of this group. These people are very, very clever and sinister. Very clever and sinister. And Maloney, never trust Maloney. She's a Trojan horse. She's a globalist one day, she's a populist the next. Never, ever trust Georgia Maloney. Anyway, that is what Reuters is reporting. Here is a post from Emmanuel Macron. I spoke tonight with POTUS, Keir Starmer, Bundeskanzler, I believe that's Merz, and Giorgia Meloni after our talks in Kiev and Tirana. Tomorrow, President Putin must show he wants peace by accepting the 30-day unconditional ceasefire proposed by President Trump and backed by Ukraine and Europe. The way they word these things, the way they word them. They're delivering the ultimatum. They want Trump to deliver the ultimatum to Putin. 30-day unconditional ceasefire as proposed by Trump, you see. This is your proposal, Trump, which it is, because Trump made the terrible mistake, the absolutely terrible mistake of endorsing Keith Kellogg's freeze plan. The 22-point freeze plan is what they're calling it now. Now it's called the 22-point plan. We're not calling it the freeze or ceasefire plan anymore, right? We have to play with words, everybody. We have to make sure that we play with words. We massage the words. Ceasefire, freeze plan. Russians don't like that. The Russian society, the Russian military, the Russian government, they don't like the ceasefire, freeze plan. So let's change it up. Let's change it and call it the 22-point plan. That sounds good, huh? Sounds like it's a really, really detailed plan, right? 22-point plan. Wow. You guys really sat down and really thought about this, Kellogg. You really thought about this. 22 points. Wow, that's good work, Keith Kellogg. So that's what they're calling it now. Just an FYI. It's the 22-point plan. Anyway, it's the same plan. 30-day unconditional ceasefire, DMZ, freeze the conflict, European troops in Ukraine. The same exact plan. They're just naming it differently. But that's their demand, according to Macron. We are telling Trump, we as Europeans are telling Trump, you deliver this ultimatum to Putin. And always remember, Trump, this was your plan. This was your plan. And if Putin doesn't take it, you have to put sanctions on Russia. And once you put sanctions on Russia, that is it. Presidency over. America first. Over. MAGA is over. You are now fully bogged down in Project Ukraine, completely bogged down. After sanctions comes weapons, comes money, which is really important to the Europeans. With sanctions on Russia, you're fully invested in Project Ukraine. Now you got to keep the money flowing. You got to go to Congress and get some more billions allocated to Project Ukraine, to the Green Goblin, to NATO, to Europe. And that's the goal of all of this. It's not really about Russia. It's not really about Putin. It's about keeping America bogged down in Ukraine, which really means keeping the United States invested in Europe. Invested. Washing machine. It goes round and round and round, keeping the United States invested in Europe. Because for all the talk about the Europeans increasing their defense spending and the Europeans building a military and the Europeans taking on the Russians without the United States, we all know that is BS. We all know the Europeans cannot do it. We know this. We know the Europeans can't do it. Without the United States, there is no NATO. There is no Europe against Russia. There is no conflict in Ukraine. There is no military. There is no defense spending. They need the United States. We know this. And their fear is that Trump is going to walk away from Europe, from NATO. That's their fear. Even with Trump, even with Hegseth, even with Rubio telling Europe, bump up your defense spending to 5%, to 6%, to 4%, whatever. We all know the Europeans are not going to do that. We all know the Europeans cannot do that. Their economies would collapse. They need the United States. That's what this is all about. And they understand that once Trump approves sanctions, that's it. He is fully invested in Project Ukraine, which really means Project Europe, Project NATO, call it whatever you want, Project Globalism. And the kicker to all of this is that once Russia wins, and as the Zelensky regime collapses, they're all going to blame Trump. That's the beauty to this plan that they've put together. When it all comes crumbling down, all of the Europeans can come out and say Trump's fault, and the neocons like Lindsey Graham can say Trump's fault, and then they can open up a Russiagate investigation 3.0 or 4.0, and they can say that Trump didn't do enough or Trump delayed and blah, 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 blah. That's exactly what they're going to do. So anyway, that is the article coming out of Reuters. Financial Times talks about Kellogg's 22-point plan. It says Putin's peace theater keeps Trump watching and Kiev waiting. Russian president slow-rolled negotiators and failed to attend talks, but his gamble met little U.S. resistance. And the first two paragraphs from this Financial Times article goes like this. In parallel to a brutal war along a 1,000-kilometer front, Russia and Ukraine are locked in a titanic diplomatic battle to persuade Donald Trump that the other is the real impediment to peace. So Vladimir Putin took a big risk over the last week, slow-rolling U.S. negotiators over a peace proposal, according to officials familiar with the discussion, then refusing to turn up for talks with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky in Turkey that he himself had publicly initiated. So the lies in the first two paragraphs kind of made me stop reading the rest of the Financial Times article. I did power through it, but the first two paragraphs, all lies. All lies. And in the second paragraph, actually, it's all lies. Russia's not slow rolling anything. Russia has said a gazillion freaking times no to Kellogg's plan. They've said it a gazillion times. No to Kellogg's plan. Russia has outlined its terms a gazillion freaking times. They've outlined what their terms are. And as far as Putin refusing to turn up in Istanbul, which is something that he publicly initiated, fake news on the Financial Times. Fake news, Financial Times. Misinformation from the Financial Times. Putin never said in his statement that he wants to personally meet Zelensky. After Putin gave his statement, Ushakov spoke to Russian media that very same night and said, we are appointing a negotiating team on the initiative of the president so we can have bilateral talks with Ukraine's negotiating team, not with Zelensky, with Ukraine's negotiating team. So the Russians were very clear. So the Financial Times is lying. Putin never said he's going to meet Zelensky. That was never his initiative. His initiative was bilateral talks, negotiating team. So Putin refusing to turn up, Putin never said he would turn up. Why would Putin turn up? Why would Putin show up in Istanbul to meet with Zelensky? Why? Makes no sense at all. But anyway, that's the Financial Times. Doing what they do best, spreading disinformation. Anyway, the 22-point plan, then they talk about the 22-point plan and how Putin is slow rolling it. Slow rolling it. We don't want a ceasefire. We're not going to accept a ceasefire. We're not going to accept the Kellogg plan. We reject the Kellogg plan. We reject the Kellogg plan. Hey, how about the Kellogg plan? We reject it. Hey, how about the Kellogg plan? We reject it. How about a ceasefire? We reject it. How about a freeze? We reject it. How about an armistice? We reject it. How about a DMZ, demilitarized zone? We reject it. How about a 22-point plan? We reject it. I mean, how much more clear do you have to get? Anyway, it's all about creating a narrative of Russia not wanting peace, of Zelensky wanting peace, Russia not wanting peace, so that US President Trump says, okay, sanctions on Russia. That's what this is all about. That's it. That is it. So photos came out from yesterday's inaugural Mass of Pope Leo, his first Mass. And Ursula was there, so there's a photo of Ursula meeting with the Pope. There's a photo of the Pope sitting at his desk with Zelensky and Zelenskaya. I wonder what they were talking about. And there was also photos that came out of Vance and Rubio. They met with Zelensky. I talked about this in my video update yesterday. I said that that Rubio, without a doubt, is going to meet with Zelensky. But Vance, I wasn't so sure if Vance would actually take up a meeting with Zelensky, because Vance does not like Zelensky, but he did sit down with Zelensky. The reports are that they sat down for about 30 minutes, so that tells you a lot. And Zelensky says that he told Vance, 30-day unconditional ceasefire, or you must place sanctions on Russia. That was pretty much the message that Zelensky delivered to the President of the United States. That's the order that Zelensky gave to the Vice President of the United States. That's the orders from Zelensky to VP Vance. You tell Putin 30-day unconditional ceasefire, or you better put sanctions on Russia. So Russia, they are hitting back at Estonia. And Bloomberg reported yesterday that Russia detains oil tanker that left Estonia. Report says Russia detained the Liberian-flagged oil tanker Green Admire, which left the port of Silamai and was sailing through Russian territorial waters, Estonian public broadcasting said Sunday. So the ship was sailing through Russian waters, and according to Bloomberg, Russia detained this tanker. The Estonian Shadow Fleet. It's about time that someone put an end to Estonia's Shadow Fleet, those ghost ships that Estonia manages, the ghost Shadow Fleet that Estonia manages. It's about time that a country put an end to Estonia's Shadow Fleet. Let's do a clown world and wrap this video up. How am I doing on time? I'm doing all right on time. And let's talk a bit about the Cannes Film Festival, where Bono and Sean Penn, they hit the red carpet with Ukraine soldiers. That's right. They called in Ukraine soldiers to walk on the red carpet. Sean Penn and Bono. Bono's promoting his documentary. I forgot what the name of the documentary is called. I think Songs of Surrender or something like that. I don't think it's connected to Ukraine. I don't think it has anything to do with Ukraine. I think it's a documentary on Bono's life, I guess. But he wanted to put out a political message, and he decided to invite Ukraine soldiers, and he talked about how the Ukraine soldiers are fighting for freedom and they're fighting against fascism, and that was Bono's message at the Cannes, along with everyone's favorite actor, Sean Penn. That's Bono. That's Bono and Sean Penn. And since we're talking about celebrities, it looks like Trump is gearing up to investigate the Harris campaign. He posted on Truth Social, how much did Kamala Harris pay Bruce Springsteen for his poor performance during her campaign for president? Why did he accept that money if he is such a fan of hers? Isn't that a major and illegal campaign contribution? What about Beyonce? And how much went to Oprah and Bono? I am going to call for a major investigation into this matter. Candidates aren't allowed to pay for endorsements, which is what Kamala did. under the guise of paying for entertainment. In addition, this was a very expensive and desperate effort to artificially build up her sparse crowds. It's not legal. For these unpatriotic entertainers, this was just a corrupt and unlawful way to capitalize on a broken system. Thank you for your attention to this matter. He's right. He's right. I think that's a question that everybody is asking. What do these celebrities get for endorsing these candidates? What do they get for putting on concerts at campaign rallies? What do they get for showing up on the red carpet? Maybe nothing. Maybe they do it out of the kindness of their heart. Maybe they do it because they really believe in the cause. Well, let's wait for an investigation. Let's hope that Trump does initiate an investigation. And let's see if an investigation turns up something on Springsteen and Beyonce and Bono. And Bono. So finally, let's talk about Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who gave an interview together on Fox News. They talked to Maria Bartiromo. Bartiromo? I think that's her last name. She has a really pretty last name, but I always forget it. Anyway, they spoke to her on Fox News. And I'm trying to stay out of the sun because, man, it is hot. Anyway, Kash Patel and Bongino, they talked about what's going on at the FBI. It was a pretty normal interview, I would say. They talked about all the reforms taking place at the FBI, how the FBI is going after all kinds of criminals that the previous FBI would not go after, would not touch. And then they got the question from Fox News, from Maria B. Let's call her Maria B. She gave the question, what about Epstein? And that's when the interview went south. Kash Patel said that he believes Epstein self-annihilated. He said he has experience in these types of cases. And he said he is absolutely convinced, positive, that Epstein self-deleted. Self-deleted. That is what Patel said. And Bongino said that he's seen the case file. He's seen the case file, and he said, look, I'm just going to tell you straight up. Epstein Epstein self-deleted. That's what Bongino said. I'm losing my train of thought. Yeah. Epstein self-deleted. That is what Bongino said. He said, you're not going to like it, what I'm saying. People are not going to like it, but I've seen the case file. I'm just going to tell you how it is. Epstein took his own life. That's what they said. Oh boy. Yeah. So the message, I think, is crystal clear now. The message is very clear. As far as this case goes, it's over. There's going to be no files. There's going to be no transparency as to who he was working for, what was going on, all the details about what he was up to, all the people that were involved in his crimes, all the people that he was most likely blackmailing. Everything, all of the details that we want to find out about this particular case. The message from Patel and Bongino, I believe, was crystal clear. Forget about it. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch like what I'm wearing in this video update. The link is in the description box down below. Take care.